What's up everybody, Jill here. Welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. It is a beautiful Saturday when I am shooting this vlog. We have had so much stinking rain all week, so I had to take days off this week, a bit behind on normal schedule as far as things I needed to get done. So I'm using this opportunity to come out into my greenhouse, start more seeds. I do have some trays behind me here. So I started some more Katrina cucumbers. I started some Grand Marshal tomatoes. I started some more kohlrabi. And then of course our sunflowers that I'm doing every single week. So this is what my seed collection looks like here of late. These are actually harvest baskets, and I love them for harvest baskets, but I like to use the big ones to throw everything I could possibly need for the day in here. And so usually it's like my water bottle, my Bluetooth speaker to have music. And obviously right now this thing is packed full of seeds. So I'm going to go through, show you what it is that I'm starting or what I've already started. But with the greenhouse, we have everything kind of set up on a rotation. So our cucumbers are finally starting to produce, if you guys caught vlogs last week. So now we're starting the next round of those. We've got our tomatoes starting to produce, so we're starting another round of those. So the things that I don't have photos of now, I'm going to pull from last season and pop up in here. So when I mention these names, I'll put them on the screen what they are, but then I'm also going to put a photo in here so you can see what they look like at maturity. For me, this helps me when I'm growing new varieties to see what the end product looks like, so I know when is the peak harvest. And so granted, if you are growing some of these things to sell, you're going to be harvesting them a bit underripe, especially if we're talking about tomatoes. But if you're just growing these things fresh for your family, you want to wait until they're like good and red and juicy and ripe, and you're just going to eat them fresh that day or within the next couple days. Alright, so it was getting pretty bright in the greenhouse, so I decided to move my little table out here by the sunnies and do this video in the shade. But like I mentioned, I do hope that you have your phone, your pen, your notepad. I'm not going through all of the varieties. Specifically, I'm going through greenhouse varieties. And so this video got recommended to me by a follower on Instagram. And I was happy to do it. And kind of the approach and what she had came to me with was like, hey, I've grown heirlooms for years now. But with the rising cost of food prices, with the lack of food available, I feel this urgency to shift to varieties that are disease resistant, that are pest resistant, that are hybrids, because they are literally bred to withstand those conditions. And so you guys know I've made a big shift in the last few years from a hobby farmer to, a market farm to selling my produce. Now we don't sell our produce, but we're still growing very efficiently, and we like to teach how to grow efficiently. Now, do not hear me wrong, please. You can grow heirlooms efficiently. So I guess before I start diving into a lot of these hybrid varieties, let's talk about what a hybrid is. I deep dive into this in my book, The Tiny But Mighty Farm, which is available for pre-order now. I'll put a link down in the description. But a lot of times, especially when I was new and beginning to gardening, I thought hybrid equaled bad. I can't grow a hybrid. It's it's not organic. It's not good. It's just this weird cross that I don't really know anything about. And then as I started educating myself, I realized, oh, okay, just because it's hybrid, that's not bad at all. Just like an heirloom's not bad. An heirloom tells a story. An heirloom's been passed down from generation to generation. I love growing heirlooms. They will always have a place on my farm, but a lot of what we're doing is hybrid. And essentially what hybrid is it's an intentionally, cross-pollinated. And you take two different plants, and it is the highest quality because you're trying to get the most desirable traits. And so you cross those two. So you're taking two different plants, you are intentionally cross-pollinating them, and you're hoping to get the offspring or a hybrid that contains the best traits of those parent plants. And so it's gotten real scientific, right? The people who are, creating these different varieties, they are being very intentional that they're disease resistant, that they're pest resistant, that they're crack resistant. And really they're just narrowing it down, and they're finding the best offspring, and that's how they were creating the new variety. And so nothing about it is scary or bad. Hybrid does not mean GMO. That's another thing that kind of gets confused a lot. And while I'm not taking this video to just hone in on that, I do just want to educate you if maybe you're not familiar. So if you see a seed packet and it says hybrid, don't worry, it doesn't necessarily mean bad. So do not be leery if you buy a seed packet or you see a seed packet that says F1 or a hybrid. That's what it is. You are growing for a production scale is really important, right? I'm growing all hybrids in the high tunnel, and that's because it gets super humid, right? There's high humidity. I want to have uniform fruit. I don't want disease. I don't want pest damage. I don't want my tomatoes to split. Granted, there's some things I can do to ensure that that doesn't happen. One thing like watering is a big component when it comes to making sure your fruit doesn't split. I encourage doing less time more often. So we do 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. Things like that can really help some of those things. But just to kind of simplify what hybrid is, it's not scary. Don't be deterred if you're thinking about growing hybrid over heirlooms. That's okay. Like, I've made a huge shift. I used to only grow heirlooms on my farm. Now I, for the most part, grow hybrids with a few heirlooms sprinkled out. So I do want to talk to you guys about the varieties that I'm growing in the high tunnel. I am gonna, like I said, have photos and videos thrown in here throughout. So I hope you guys are ready to dive in. Alrighty, so we have got our cucumbers. We pruned them to a single leader. I'll be doing a video on what this looks like. So we've got the jute twine trellised on conduit at the top of the tunnel. This works really well. We're just taking the cucumber as it is vining and just literally wrapping it around the twine. It works great. So what those are, they're called a Katrina F1. The great thing about this variety is that you can harvest them when they're really little, which we prefer to harvest them when they're smaller for fresh eating or pickling. Or you can wait until they get a bit bigger and they are just like an English cucumber. Very, very disease resistant. We don't really have to worry about that at all. One of the really, really cool, fascinating things about the Katrina cucumbers, a lot of times you'll see people growing in tunnels for production, right? They're market farmers, they're market gardeners, they're doing this for their income. And so a lot of times they can't afford to have insects come in and ruin their crops. So one, they're buying these hybrid varieties that are more resistant to those, but you'll even see some people where we have our side walls rolled up, they'll put like insect netting essentially, and so no insects can actually enter their tunnel. Now we've got bees and butterflies and all sorts of stuff pollinating in there, which do also sometimes attract things we don't want, but we're okay with that. But some people aren't okay with that. And this variety in particular doesn't actually produce any male flowers. They're only female flowers, but they have such a high level of hormone that it's what's producing the fruit. They don't actually need that pollination at all to produce fruit, which is really cool. So I'm probably gonna butcher this, so I'm gonna pop it up here and actually tell you. It's like Partheno something, and it's where you're able, like it doesn't need any pollination. It only produces the female flowers. They have enough hormones to produce the fruit themselves, so they don't actually need the male flower, and it's actually really, really cool. So when you start looking into those things, it's super, super fascinating. Like I mentioned, this is great for fermenting, this is great for pickling, for fresh eating, harvest them young, harvest them bigger. We've got ourselves set up to where as soon as the fruit came on and we got our first round of fruit, I started another round of seeds, and then once those climb to the top, we'll be planting another one, and we'll just keep this rotation going well into the fall. So definitely one that I'll grow from here on out. Alright, so that is the only cucumber we are growing on the farm. I don't have any out in the raised bed. They just thrive and do so well in the tunnel that it really would kind of be a waste of my time to grow anything else. For me specifically. In the past, I have grown the striped Armenian. I really liked it. I got my seeds from Haas Tools. It was a really good one, very mild, but worked really well for fresh eating or pickling. You can just do like your Boston pickling cucumbers. There are some good options. Again, I'm telling you what I'm growing, but you're gonna have to evaluate and figure out what are your family's needs, what are your goals, what does your growing space look like. For me, I absolutely love growing in this high tunnel, that if I could just have a farm lined full of high tunnels, that is totally what I would do. And so I am really loving just experimenting with this, and I'm really kind of pushing my limits. And we're doing a lot of flower production in the raised bed, so not a lot of vegetables are going out there. But that's okay. You guys will have to evaluate that for yourself. For tomatoes, I have got, which I don't have these seeds, so I'm going to just pop the description up here and throw a photo. We have got the Sakura, which is a beautiful cherry tomato. They taste great. As you guys can see in this video, they just thrive. They're doing so well, so incredible. So really have enjoyed growing these. It'll be my first year growing these. And then we have the Rebelski, which none of these have actually turned yet. Haven't got to try these myself, but so far they all seem super uniform. We've not really had any disease with them. We've had 0 splitting, and so far I've been pretty pleased with the process of how they are growing. Now I have grown this one in the past. It's called a Chef's Pink, a Chef's Choice Pink F1. These seeds were sent to me and they're from Eden Brothers. A viewer sent these to me. I have grown them in the past. They are pretty mild, but still taste like a tomato. Things that I'm not growing this year that I would recommend you grow are the Dr. Witchies, the Kellogg's Breakfast. Those are really fruity, yellow varieties. Taste really magnificent. The Climbing Triple Crop, I'm going to be doing another round of those. I haven't grown those in probably 2 years. So I'm going to do a round of those outside. In the fall, I'll do this video again because we've got all of our paste tomatoes that we're going to be putting in the fall. But then out in the raised bed garden, I've got blueberry cherries. I've got the Granny Cantrell German Red, which is a stellar one that just gets really big. The Hillbilly Potato Leaf actually has the leaves of a potato, but obviously produces a tomato and not a potato. And they're like this yellow, red, orange streaked, really fruity, low acidity, and those taste magnificent, yield very large fruit. I did have major issues with splitting those, so that is something to keep in mind. And we've gotten a boatload of rain this year too, so that's kind of thrown our schedules off a bit with just like when tomatoes are producing outside, and kind of how they're handling that as well. And of course, I cannot forget my Grand Marshal. I just started these seeds yesterday in the tunnel. This will be the next wave that we did. I grew these out at Rabbit Ridge, probably one of the best tomatoes I've ever grown as far as producing. They literally look like apples, and you would just go and harvest so many of them. If you're wanting to can and preserve a lot, these are incredible. Now when it comes to canning diced tomatoes, I prefer to have those heirlooms. I want all different types of colors and flavors, and for me that really brings the dish to life. And so a lot of what we're growing now is for fresh eating salsas, but like for my diced tomatoes, you know, I like to kind of explore, which is why I'm growing some of the heirlooms out in the raised bed, just so I can add some diversity of flavors when I can though. So again, you have to think about what's going to work for you, what your needs are, and obviously your flavor. I think it's so much fun growing for flavor, like just growing things to experiment cooking. We are major foodies around here. Nathan loves to cook, and so for me, I find a lot of joy growing different varieties so that he can kind of experiment in the kitchen. It encourages me to experiment in the kitchen, and I eat primarily vegetables, so I do like to just add new things in that taste different, and it's just kind of fun. All right, so the food production that we have in the high tunnel right now, we've got our cucumbers, we have our few varieties of tomatoes, but now we are starting to move into root crops. We're doing these in a couple different ways, and I'll be having video content around that, but we're gonna be doing root crops in a green stalk in a large way, but then we are designating beds just to that, and these are going to be the varieties that we are putting in there. So we have the dragon carrots. These are a specialty carrot. They are yellow, oranges on the inside, dark red, purple on the outside. Flavor's very mild, really kind of sweet almost, but really nice. I've grown that variety for several years. And then we have the Napoli carrots. So these I really like to grow kind of for a baby carrot. You can harvest these pretty young. They taste really well. What we do with our carrots is we ferment a lot of them. We store a lot of them. We're making a lot of fresh hummus. So I'm growing chickpeas myself this year to grow that. But then there's a hummus that we make that's a carrot, a sriracha carrot. And so we're growing a ton of peppers in the high tunnel. We're going to grow these carrots. So the idea is to grow a lot of the things that we're buying from the store just to cut down the need to be reliant. Whatever we can grow and produce ourselves here on the farm, it's kind of what we're for, kind of what we're aiming to do. And so carrots was something that we're really kind of doing on a large scale. And then for beets, we have these round red beets. I can't even pronounce this, so I'm hoping the camera will focus and show you guys. And these are really good. I did grow in the raised bed garden this year a golden beet, which I really like for beet hummus. Super mild for roasted beets, super mild. I will always grow the golden beet. And then we've got the I think the baby beets as well that you harvest just as these small little ones, which are really great just for like fresh eating, things like that. Roasted, they taste really good. So those are kind of the rotations. Now we are doing radishes as well. Really, you know, we do daikon radishes in a large way in the fall and the winter. Those are this big, large, purple. They last forever. They last for like 6 to 9 months in the fridge. So those are great. We've still been finishing eating those. We fermented a bunch of those. But now we're shifting to this time of year where it's getting a lot hotter and you can't grow the daikon radishes. And so what I'm doing is I'm finding heat-resistant radishes. It is going to narrow down your choices, but you want something that's going to be able, you know, to produce in that 23-25 day period. That way it's just not getting too hot. You're just able to harvest these nice little you know, radishes quickly. You can interplant those. And when I say interplant, I mean you're planting them in between something that's bigger, bushier, is going to provide some shade. So we're going to interplant with our tomatoes. And so it's going to provide enough shade to where they're not going to get as woody as fast, and hopefully they can get to maturity and still taste well. So we're definitely kind of pushing the limits on a few different varieties when it comes to the radishes as well. So the other thing that we're growing a large amount of in the high tunnel are peppers. We have quite a few peppers. We're wanting to experiment with this as well. So we want to make our own hot sauces. We want to make our own pepper jellies. And so we're really just kind of pushing the limits on the different varieties that we're growing and really just kind of tasting them. We do keep notepads and Excel spreadsheets on different flavor notes that we liked and didn't like. I think this is really important. I can grow a variety that had 0 pest damage and thrived, and that's great and wonderful. But if I didn't find a way to use it or we didn't eat it, then it really is a waste of my time and a waste of space that I could be growing something else. So when it comes to keeping your notes, don't just think about like production. Don't just think about, is it disease resistant? Did it perform? Think about, did I eat it? Did I like it? Did my family like it? How could I use this in more than one way? So I do think that's something important. But we are growing the Carmen sweet peppers. You guys can see in this video here, we have it trellised and pruned to a single leader. These will grow all the way to the top. They are doing fantastic. They're thriving so well. It's been such a joy seeing these. We also have our shishito peppers, which we love just to blister these, toss them in some butter and a cast iron, and it is just like the perfect summer snack. So we have a lot of that. The ahi pepper, which is this tiny, light your butt on fire pepper. I grew these last year in the tunnel. Loved them, not in the sense of how they tasted, but just how prolific they were. And it's the most expensive pepper in the world. The amount of money you can get for this pepper is insane, but we did want to grow it again for the sake of making hot sauce. And so we are going to grow it. We did not need to start very many at all. We saved the seeds from last year, so that was going to be pretty fun. And they're just a fun thing to grow. We're doing farm-to-table dinners this year, and so I think that that's going to be one of those fun ones that we can kind of have an opportunity to just share new varieties with people, and so I think it is going to be received pretty well. So we do have those. I did plant some lilac bells. They're just beautiful purple bell pepper. Just again, adding some color. They have a great mild flavor. Tastes really well, just eaten fresh with hummus, or you can cook them in things like a traditional bell. I do like to kind of find spin-offs, right? So we do just have bell peppers growing. But if I can kind of spice it up and add some color, I just think it's pretty. It adds some diversity to your plate as well. And then we move into our kales and things. We have got just our dino kale. We grow this in a large way in the raised bed garden, but I am going to be putting some in the green stock that's going in the high tunnel. And then we have our kohlrabi. So I've grown kohlrabi from Johnny's and Fruition seeds. The variety from Johnny's is called a Cossack, and it's just the white. It does really well, and this is called Landrow, and this is what I just harvested out of the raised bed, but then I did just start the Johnny's variety for the high tunnel as well. Y'all, I'm like chasing the sun all around my farm, so I'm sorry if it gets super, super bright. All right, and the last varieties I want to talk to you about that you can grow in the tunnel or you can grow outside. Granted, this zone matters so much, so knowing your growing zone is huge. I do also recommend follow people that are in a similar or the same growing zone as you. It does make it very, very helpful. I know I follow people in like Washington and Maine, and they're talking about all these different flowers that they're growing, but then knowing they're in a completely different zone and climate than I am, that I can't be growing those things either at all, or certainly not the same time of year that they are. So I do think it's important to make sure that you are following people, talking to your local farmers, getting advice, finding mentorships with people local to you. It is going to make a huge difference. But for me, I'm in zone 7B. I'm in central Arkansas. We can really push the limits with our lettuce production, especially if you have the right variety. So I actually took a lettuce masterclass years ago when I was working full-time and aspiring. You know, I mean, I've farmed and gardened as a hobby, but I definitely still had a job outside the farm. And it was just something I was trying to learn and explore a bit more. And so I found out about this really awesome guy named Ray Tyler. He owns Rose Creek Farms. He's a couple hours from me, very similar growing zone, things like that. And he was doing the market gardening thing on a very, very large scale and super, super efficiently. And so I was looking at how can I bring in income? How can I bring in revenue? And so I took this course of his, and he was like, hey, you can actually be growing lettuce 52 weeks out of the year. And I thought, he's crazy. Like, there's no way this is possible. Turns out he was totally right. Super, super cool. So if you guys don't know Ray, check him out. He does have a lot of courses. Tell him Jill sent you. It's been fun kind of building that relationship with him and his family and just seeing what he does. And he reaches a totally different market than I do. And so that's kind of cool to see our worlds collide. But I did learn about a lot of really awesome varieties that would thrive in our heat and that I could grow, because lettuce and spinach, those are things, gosh, I eat spinach at least 3 times a day. If I'm not, you know, growing spinach myself, I am spending a lot of money on organic spinach. And so that's something that I've really just, you know, had conversations with Nathan about, like, we've got to figure out the spinach thing on a large scale, or I'm just going to end up going broke buying spinach. And like, I know I can grow it. So the Savoy spinach is one that I am growing. It came from Johnny's. We're growing this, and our green stalks spinaches do really great in containers. So if you're wanting to crank out a high yield, but you don't have the space, do not be discouraged by that. Like, grow within your means, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it. There are Vego garden beds that you can put together like really anywhere. They have so many different size options. I'll pop a link down. You can do green stalks. You can grow these on a very large scale. I'll put a link in the description. We're actually putting our green stalk, we're going to put one up in the high tunnel with the shade cloth, just to really kind of push our limits with some of these different greens and things like that. And so there's a lot of different ways you can grow greens and spinaches. You do not need a lot of space. You can do this on your balcony. You can do this if you live in an apartment. You can do this if you know, have a concrete jungle and have absolutely no grass anywhere. Like, you are not limited when it comes to greens, and really even root vegetables thrive a lot in containers. So I say that to encourage you, just grow food. I believe in you. You can do it. Don't be discouraged by the circumstances that you're in right now, because you can really use that opportunity to learn and grow as a gardener. And if you do move to where you have more space, you'll just be equipped with that knowledge to really kind of tackle it head on whenever you get there. So the Savoy spinach is one that we're growing on a large scale. I'm starting these in my mini blocker, which is a 20 mini blocker handheld. Use it for all of our root crops, so like our radishes and our beets. I'm starting those in these little mini blocks, and I'm transplanting those out, which we'll have a video on that too. And then here's a red tabby. It's a smooth leaf lettuce. I don't love it as much, but it does add different texture and different diversity and different colors. So this isn't one that I'm growing in abundance of, but I do like to grow it and mix it in with my other lettuces. And then the Bib lettuce. This is a great variety that is very disease and heat tolerant. So this is one I can really kind of push my limits with. Again, you can direct seed all of these, but I am starting these in these little mini blockers and transplanting them. You guys know I prefer to transplant my things because one, I'm able to start them faster, and then I keep that rotation. You guys see all of these sunflowers behind me? I'm starting 288 sunflowers a week in trays, and then the next week I'm transplanting out the previous tray, and then we're harvesting. So when we really get in the flow of things, we're harvesting sunflowers every week, we're transplanting out sunflowers every week, and we are starting sunflowers and seeds in trays every single week. And so I like to do the same thing with these really quick, fast germinating, seed to harvest varieties as well. The beets, the radish, the lettuce, the spinach. You can start these in these mini blocks, transplant them out. By the time you have a good harvest, you've already got your next round going, and you're constantly replacing. Something else I'm doing is just always having these lettuces and spinaches started. That way, if there's any empty space in the garden, whether that's in the raised bed, whether you have a container, whether you're growing in a high tunnel, you can easily take these and fill space that's producing food. So I really do think these are a great option for that. But these are the varieties that I'm growing in my high tunnel. Not a lot. We still have a bunch more we're going to do. We just haven't done it all yet. I'm still cleaning out a lot of the flowers, and then we'll have ginger go in there. We've got Clancy seed potatoes, which is a second-year trial that we're doing to see if they produce anything. I don't know. They're growing, so we will see. But I still have like 2 more beds full of produce that needs to go out, vegetables that needs to be put in there. And so as I'm transplanting some of these things out, starting these things, I will continue to teach you guys, tell you what I'm doing, and just really kind of take you guys along for the journey. But all of these, for the most part, were hybrids. I've had a lot of luck with them. I hope that this doesn't change your mind. My idea is not to change your mind. My idea is to to broaden really your mindset. And if you're having troubles with your heirlooms, or maybe you just want to max out and be efficient, and maybe I've always grown this one tomato, but you've had disease and pest, maybe try to find a hybrid that's equivalent. I think there's so much value in growing heirlooms. I think we all need to find places for heirlooms in our gardens and on our farms because it's important. It's vital. It's been passed down from generations and needs to continue to be passed down to generations to come. But for me, from a production standpoint, I have really kind of fallen in love with hybrids and just how efficiently you can grow them, how fast they grow, how much they produce. That has really been kind of a jolt of energy for me on the farm. And so hopefully it kind of gives you that push and that encouragement as well. But thanks for hanging out with me today. Go get busy planting. I'll talk to you soon.